Very, very warm welcome to all of you to this masterclass on counseling for swab transplants, brought to you jointly by MOHAN Foundation and NATCO. NATCO, as you know, is the Network and Alliance of Transplant Coordinators, a membership body that brings coordinators together and organizes knowledge building webinars and workshops and conferences like this. If you're not a member already, you may consider looking at it. As you know, the government of India in its amendment had included the clause of swap transplants, looking at the organ shortage in our country to increase the donor pool. Swap transplants was introduced. However, not many are happening in our country. IKDRC has taken the lead in this. And if one hospital in the country can do it, we don't see any reason why other hospitals cannot follow that example. We have a very special speaker today, Dr. Subho Banerjee. He is the Associate Professor, Department of Nephrology at the IKDRC-ITS at Ahmedabad. Dr. Subho spoke at our annual conference in Kolkata at the ITC, and I thought it was such a good session. And I didn't think, I thought the others who hadn't attended should also get an opportunity to hear him. And along with Dr. Subho, we have Hardik, Balubhai, Jethva, one of us, the transplant coordinators, also from IKDRC-ITS, Ahmedabad. I request everyone to keep yourself on mute. You can unmute yourselves when it's time for discussion. Over to you, Dr. Subho.
Okay, so thank you for this introduction and thank you for having me. And I'll just start by sharing my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
So let us begin. So the topic for today is counseling for swab transplants. So once a patient is diagnosed with CKD, so he has practically three options. One is to be on dialysis lifelong. One is to go for a life-related transplant, and one is to go for a deceased donor transplant. This, as transplant coordinators, you all know very clearly. So now, which among these options is better? So this is beyond doubt, beyond any debate, beyond any evidence looking, that living donor kidney transplantation, that is LDKT, is definitely better than deceased donor kidney transplantations. And these transplants are always better than staying on hemodialysis. So when you're looking at survival or quality of life or cost of treatment, so any of these, so it is absolutely very clear that transplantation is better than dialysis for any set of patients that you can think of. So with living donor kidney transplantation, we have options like ABO compatible transplantations, ABO incompatible transplantations, and KPD. This is swap transplant. So these are more or less equal in outcomes. And when it comes to desensitization, the outcomes are not so good. So I'll come to what exactly is desensitization. Why are we talking about it? So hurdles in living donor transplant. Typically, the main important hurdles are lack of infrastructure. Sometimes there are no willing donors. Sometimes the barrier is financial. Patients cannot afford a transplant. It is also ABO incompatibility and HLA incompatibility. Now, there are a lot of expansion of transplant facilities. Now, if you remember a few years ago, there were only few hand-selected transplant centers which were offering transplants at affordable prices. Now, so many government centers are coming up, and different small district-wise hospitals are coming up, which can give you a good transplant. And cadaver programs are coming out now. Almost every state has a SOTO. They are going. In the process of improving kidney transplants from deceased donors. So that is actually happening. Financially, insurance coverage is growing. There are so many government schemes. Almost every state has a scheme where transplantation is at least covered. Some amount of post-transplant medication is covered. And then out-of-pocket spending is also increased. So what remains is ABO incompatibility and HLA incompatibility, which contributes around 30% to 50% of patients who are unable to get a transplant. Now, when there is ABO incompatibility, that is around 30 to 40% of all the patients in any pool. So there are two options for these patients. One is an ABO incompatible transplant, or the other is to go for a kidney paired donation. So ABO incompatibility transplantation is the second miracle. Now, if you follow cricket avidly, you've just seen how Sachin Tendulkar has been just overtaken by Virat Kohli. So likewise, transplantation is the new miracle, the new kid on the block. But transplantation, when you're talking about ABO incompatible transplantation, so the logistics are easy. Legality is very clearly established. There are excellent long-term outcomes. So ABO incompatible transplantation is at least as good as a living donor transplantation. But what are the downsides? Cost, safety. The protocols are still evolving, so people are not very sure as to how to go about it, whether to go for splenectomy, rituximab. So these are all medical issues which are not very clear-cut, and reimbursement is also not standardized, and the cost is higher than simple transplant. Now, how KPD comes into the picture is when you are trying to do a ABO incompatible transplant, you're trying to go through a passage where there is some amount of incompatibility and you're trying to move through it. What KPD can give you is you can move around the issue. So KPD circumvents the immune barrier. Swab transplant, they circumvent the immune barrier which ABO tries to face head on. So this is nature, this is ABO incompatible transplant, and this is KPD. So then we need not fight. So there is enough evidence to say that ABO incompatible transplants are at least twice as expensive as a simple transplant, ABO compatible transplant. It is associated with a lot of cost, bleeding, and infections. So the other option is for these patients is to go for a kidney paired exchange. So very simply speaking, what a kidney paired exchange can give you is, suppose there are two pairs, a donor who is A, a recipient who is B, again a donor who is B, and recipient is A. They cannot go transplants just like that. So what they can do is they can exchange the kidneys. We can do 2 transplants and they can go home happy. Just to give you a brief history of how it started. So around 1986, this was first suggested by Rappaport. This is from South Korea. They started the first transplants in around the 90s and the early 90s. And then it has taken up in the US and various other countries. And IKDRC, we did our first KPD in June 2000. This was the first swab transplant in the country. So from 2000 to 2023, we are doing transplants, but we are doing it as a single center. While other countries, they have gone over to have a national program. I'll show you why it is important to have a large program, to have a large collaboration between all these centers, so that you can so that we can actually reap the good benefit from the KPD. So why do KPD programs lag behind? Why aren't we doing more transplants? Just as Madam Balubhai was saying, so we are doing a very few kidney exchanges. Why? And ABO incompatible transplants are not that uncommon. Because
Dr. Subho, if you could just emphasize for the audience what KPD is, and that's the same as swap. I think that
So KPD is kidney paired donation. So donors are donating in pairs so that the kidney can be exchanges. So it is the same as kidney paired exchange or a swap transplant. If you look at the literature, you will find the word KPD or KPE as the more common term that is being used rather than swap transplant. So we have just taken this term. So KPD is just the same as swap transplants. So why do swap transplant programs lag behind ABO incompatibles? Because logistics are easy. For ABO incompatible transplant, it is not needed to have 2 donors, 2 recipients, so much paperwork. That is not really needed. So it is logistically very easy. One medical team, 1 donor, 1 recipient, done. But it is medically challenging. While KPD, this is logistically challenging, but medically very easy. There is no difference between a simple transplant from a wife to a husband, a father to a daughter, and a KPD. There is no difference. Only thing, you are doing 2 transplants, 3 transplants in a day. So the answer lies in the way transplants are done in India. So this is mostly in private centers where the number of OTs might be limited, mostly as single centers, and mostly from live donors. So what are the main hurdles in the swab program? So one is from the hospital. This is inertia. People don't want to do swab transplants because it is going to affect all the other departments. So doing 4 transplants in small centers is very difficult. They have to block all the OTs probably, and sometimes there aren't that many OTs that you can do 4 transplants 4 surgeries in a day. Then the logistics are very difficult, the paperwork and everything. So we need to have domiciles, different NOCs, various other documents. It is mandatory that only near relatives can go for swab, and we don't have altruistic donors who can go for swab. So rather than going for swab or ABO incompatible, patients might prefer to go for a deceased donor transplantation. Also, you should need to understand that for ABO incompatibility, it is easy for, say, A and B patients to swap their kidneys. That, like the example I've shown you. But for O recipients and AB donors, it is very difficult for them to get a compatible kidney. I'll show you why. So what are the legal aspects? So only near relatives are allowed to participate in kidney exchanges. So that is still a problem. Also, we as a society and also legally, we are probably not ready to accept altruistic donors. And the moment the chain becomes long, there is a problem of donor renage. Renage is that, suppose there is a patient whose surgeries has happened and their donor has not donated a kidney. Suppose there are 3 transplants. So 2 transplants you are doing on one day, another transplant you are doing on the second day. So the first recipient has got the kidney. The second recipient has got the kidney. The third donor, the third day's donor, he will probably not get a kidney because, since the the first donor has already received a kidney and that first recipient's donor was supposed to donate on the second day. So he or she may say, I am not going to donate. And there is no legal way where you can pressurize. The concept of consent is that the patient can withdraw the consent at any given time. So if the donor runs away, there is no other way than to say sorry and face the music. But the thing is, now there is some respite that Punjab and Haryana High Court, the Kerala High Court, so many high courts, they have very clearly said that more, beyond near relatives, other than near relatives can also participate for swaps, but this is still not very common. So you have to keep this in mind that it is possible for your patient. If there is a patient who's say father-in-law or mother-in-law or some paternal uncle, maternal aunt, they want to donate, there is probably a way you can actually go to the authorization committee with this evidence and say that they can consider. So also multiple documents are required over and above the usual extensive paperwork in the transplants in cases of swap transplants. So for that, we also have our transplant coordinator who will be sharing it with you what exact documentations and what exactly is needed. But essentially what you need to know is that KPD is an unrelated transplantation. So whatever you do for an unrelated transplant, that you have to do for a swap also. And you have to get the permission in pairs. Now, law used to restrict transplant exchanges between more than one pair initially, but now that is gone away. So you can have 2-way, 3-way, 4-way swaps. So what you need to prove essentially are documents of identity and address and of domicile nature, like the address of the patient, and proof of relation of the donor to the patient. Now in Gujarat, what we are doing is we are taking Aadhaar, voter, something called the Vanshavali, or the relation of the donors and the recipient and the other members in the family. We're going for police verification, and we are asking them to deposit some old photographs which can ensure that the patients are actually related and there is no fraudulent donor. So this is very important in a swap. Now, when you are counseling, so medical counseling for KPD patients, so for every patient actually, it is the same. So patient and donor, what we have to explain is the surgical risk, the risk of anesthesia, the risk of rejection and drug toxicity, and the infection and malignancy. So these are the 4 things that every patient and donor need to know. So for the donor, surgical and anesthesia risk is important. For the patient also, surgical anesthesia risk, and the rejection, drug toxicity, infection and malignancy are specific to the patient only. So what we need to explain is that it is always going to be a surgery. So for every patient and every donor, the surgical risk might be difficult. So obesity, some coagulation issues, infection, wound-related infection, how the wound will heal. So these are going to be different. And we have to explain very clearly to both these pairs. But suppose we are talking of 2 patients and 2 donors, we have to explain to them that it is possible that one of them might get an infection, and it is not because of the surgery or the kidney swapping that the wound infection is happening or the wound related issue is happening. Because see, at the end of the day, the kidneys of the 2 patients are different, the vasculature might be different. So these are the risks that has to be very clearly explained, and we have to balance. Suppose one donor, suppose in that example of A and B donor and B and A pair, suppose one patient has 3 arteries or 4 arteries and the other patient has a single artery. So this is not a very clear cut this is not a very good swab. So you have to explain the risk and the benefit to both of the patients should be very similar. So one patient should not be taking extra risk and the other patient should not be getting no benefit or very little benefit. So benefits and risk should be balanced. Similarly, for anesthesia risk, if there is a risk of suppose a very obese patient is there, or there is a history of difficult intubation, so these history you may take, or you may at least include these discussions with your respective team, say anesthesia team or surgical team. Similarly, when there are two patients, the risk of rejection will be different in both of these patients. The risk of drug toxicity will be different. So these things, the patients, what typically happens is these swab patients, they might have that tendency that, okay, that other patient, my relative has donated to so and so patient, that patient is doing good, I am not doing so well, so there is probably something. So this blaming, this might come in. So the explanation has to be very clear. You have to get into the brain of the patient, explain to them very clearly that the risk of rejection and drug toxicity is patient specific, and it has probably nothing to do with the donor. And detailed medical evaluation, detailed anesthesia evaluation, urological evaluation has to be done. Similarly, for infection and malignancy, and the risk of unequal outcomes, that you are going in for a KPD, you're going in for a swab, the outcomes for every transplantation, it is not sure that every transplantation will have excellent outcomes and everything will go according to plan. So that you have to explain. Now, I'll just give you some examples of how we can create swabs. So why I'm doing this is, once you understand these concepts, like what is going to happen in the swab, you can explain to the patients better. So this is the first example we have given. So A and B donor and B and A recipients, so they have swabbed kidneys. I've shown you this example. Now, if we have to suppose in this exchange, what is happening is A and B, this pair. Hello. Yeah. So suppose this donor is aged around say 40. This donor is aged around 65. So is that a good exchange? Probably not. Because what is happening is there is an imbalance in the age of the donors. So such transplantations, such exchanges should not be done. So what we need to balance is the age of the patient, the risk profile of the patient, the age of the donor, the risk profile of the donor. So these we have to balance. So suppose rather than giving a 20-year-old kidney to this patient and a 65-year-old kidney to this patient, what we can do is we can prolong the chain. We can prolong the chain in this manner, so that rather than this, so what is happening is, again, this A is giving to this same A, but rather than this B giving to this B, we are taking another pair in this system. And now this young donor, suppose, this patient can donate to this recipient, and this old donor can donate to this old pair. So somewhere age matching can be done. So once you want to balance everything, so you may want to include more and more patients. But the ultimate truth is, for all this to happen, you have to have a pool. So you need to explain to all of these patients that rather than going in for a risky ABO incompatible transplantations, you can wait. You can collaborate with your colleagues in different centers, say within the city or within the state, so that this can be done more easily. Now, similarly, what we can do is, rather than doing this transplantation where we have a 4-way transplantation, which is difficult, what we can do is we can bring in a compatible pair. Suppose O to A, spousal donor, no HLA match. So we can bring in this, and this can actually shorten the number of transplants. So the same benefits can be received, but the number of transplantation is only 3. So compatible pair. You see, this pair is compatible. O can always donate to A, so there is no issue. But what is the benefit of coming into this swab? So that you have to explain to the patient. So, like in these patients, you see what we have done is, look at those green boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a real actual 6-way swab we have done, with waiting. Like these two transplants were done on 17th, and one was on 18th, 2 on 18th, and one was a late transplant. So 17th August and 7th September. This was in 2015. So these are all compatible pairs. If you see the green one, similarly in this example, one compatible pair, in this example, another compatible pair. So you can bring in compatible pairs so that the patients can receive some benefit. So what you have to balance is, so why should compatible pairs join swab transplants? Suppose if I want a kidney, I am say B positive. my donor is O positive, what benefit do I have from coming into a swap exchange? So it is not that only when ABO incompatibility is there or HLA incompatibility is there, only then you can come in for swaps. You can actually go in for swap for any other reason also. I'll show you real world examples. Suppose for HLA incompatibility. So suppose this is a O donor and this is a B patient. So this is ABO compatible, but there is this patient, this donor has a HLA-A2 HLA, and this recipient has an antibody. So what we can do is we can swap. We can take this donor again from group B, A24, A1, so no A2, so antibody is not important. So we can this person can give kidney to this patient, and again O patient can give to A. So why has this compatible? I mean, this compatible pair come in to get benefit of HLA incompatibility. So what we have done is, rather than going for desensitization of this patient, we have swapped the donor. So now everybody goes back home happy. Again, HLA mismatches. This is especially important in spousal donor. So even if you have a suppose O donor and B patient, so what you can do is, rather than giving this donor's kidney to this patient and getting a 0/12 match of HLA, what you can do is we can give this kidney and we can have a 6/12 match. I'll show you what exactly I mean. Look at this slide. This is the coming week's transplantation. This is the real actual image from that. So concentrate on these first two patients. We are doing the swap next week here. Okay. So this is a female donor, O positive. Now, O positive is definitely a compatible donor. This female is the wife of this patient.
Have we lost Dr. Subho? Have I lost my connection?
Not able to.
We lost him.
Frozen,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Audible?
he's
Yeah.
he's
You're back, Dr. Subho.
Okay.
We can
So
hear you.
this is the actual image from the next week's transplantation. So if you concentrate, we have two donors. One is a female O donor and one is a male B donor. These are part of a swap. Okay, so this recipient O had a donor B. Okay, so B cannot donate to O, so this is a ABO incompatible. So first patient and this fourth one, these are brothers. This male and this male, these are brothers, and these are husband and wife. So O cannot get from B. So this is an incompatible pair. So what has happened is we are giving them a O positive kidney. So the benefit to this pair is that rather than getting an ABO incompatible transplantation with a B donor, they're getting an O donor. So the transplantation is simple. Now, why did this male with a B positive and a female donor O positive come into the system? Because they wanted a better HLA match. This patient is not that, and see, we have been able to match the ages also. So what is the benefit? If you look at this, So what is the HLA match? So it's a 2/2 DR match, 5/6 match on AB DR, and total 9/12 match. So they had a 0/12 match. There was not a single HLA locus that was matching. And we were able to find a 2/2, 5/6, 9/12 match. So the chances of rejection of this patient has gone down by at least 100 times. So this is the benefit of getting a swap for a ABO compatible pair. Now, what we can do is we can have better age matches, like I explained. Suppose this is a O donor and this is the grandfather donating to a grandson who is just 16. So what we can do is this patient can donate to a 50-year-old male whose wife will again donate to this person. So rather than get this fellow, rather than getting a 60-year-old kidney, is getting a 40-year-old kidney. So is that better? Definitely it is. What is the benefit for this patient? This was a ABO incompatible transplantation. So they have got a O kidney. So this is so they can come in. So this pair can come in to get a better age matched kidney. Okay. So better surgical risk. Suppose this is a donor again with double artery, group B. So they want, no, I am group O. I want a single artery. And this patient has many antibodies. They're unable to get a kidney. What they can do is, okay, if this patient might be fine accepting this. Okay, 2 arteries is fine if the surgical risk is not that high. So I can get a double artery. So no issue. And this patient will get a single artery. So surgical risk will go down for this patient. So similarly, so many different mix and matches we can do so that the benefit can be achieved. So while counseling, what we have to understand is, so what are the basic principles? Basic is we have to strive for equal outcomes. So whenever you want to do a swap, you have to think from the end of both the patients and both the donors, and be very sure that the outcomes on paper, at least, they should not look very difficult. So one is sensitized, other is not sensitized. One is getting a very young donor, other is getting a very old donor. So these things should not happen. So both pairs should at least have some benefit. You should be able to show on pen and paper that, okay, this patient is getting a young kidney, this patient is getting an ABO compatible kidney. So likewise, I've shown. So equitable transaction. So the transaction should be equitable. It is not that one pair will have a major benefit and the other patient will have a minor benefit. So that again should be avoided as far as possible. And again, the barriers should be minimized. So again, suppose a social barrier is there, or then there is some push from your institute. Okay, you have to get a good transplant for this. So try to avoid those things. Again, what are the logistics that are required? As far as possible, it should be simultaneous surgeries. You may want to rope in surgeons or say anesthetists or maybe even OTs from different centers. Say your hospital has a different branch somewhere. So you may want to collaborate with them rather than doing it on a different date. So that is always risky. So other ethical issues are anonymity. So suppose the patients want to meet, like, who am I getting my kidney from? So if they want to in a swap, they can. So there are two options. One is, I don't know where my swap donor is. I'm getting a kidney. That's the end of it. So in India, at least in our center, we are practicing non-anonymity. So our patients, they get to meet each other. They will exchange all their details. They can ask their respective physicians or nephrologists, like, this is the kidney I'm getting. You please give your opinion. So with that, we can proceed better. So what we have seen is, after transplantation, the patients and the relatives they are also involved with the other patient. Suppose I am getting a kidney from my donor, so not I am interested in my own health, but apart from that, I am also interested in what is happening to that other patient, because we have been moving around together for all the committees and everything. So there is at least a bond where we don't want to harm the other patient. So other ethical issues are like altruistic donor. This is still not possible in India. So what about reluctant donor? Suppose there is a wife who doesn't want to donate. The patient is O, the wife is B. I mean, but when you put them in a swap, it is possible for them to donate. So there will be a pressure. So that you have to understand. So again, coerced donation has to be avoided. So if there is a patient who can, suppose that donor was B, and he or she would be able to say, okay, I am ABO incompatible, so I don't want to donate. So he or she was able to hide her intention of not donating behind this medical issue. So these things you have to take care. So these are ethical issues with transplantation. Somehow we are pushing donors into donating. So what are the key features that we are following? So awareness and counseling. So every member of our team, from transplant coordinators to medical officers to the nephrology team, everybody is aware of what and who should be given an option of KPD. So we are counseling like that. We register them very early. Again, KPD registry is being maintained. So we have a list of all the patients and all the donors who are in the system. So dedicated teamwork is required. It is not that only one person will work or two persons will work. That is not possible. So uniform evaluation and care, standard HLA evaluation. So I told you, medical and surgical evaluation and anesthesia evaluation, these have to be very clear. And other things that we are following is non-anonymous allocation. I've told you, everybody knows the pairs meet each other. So kidney exchanges of similar quality have to be done. So it is not that one very old kidney, one very young kidney, we cannot exchange typically. And the other thing is simultaneous surgeries. So how do we allocate? What is the allocate? So first thing, you have to, as far as possible, you have to look for ABO compatible. So currently it is possible that you can bring in one set of ABO incompatible transplantations also. It is possible to do ABO incompatible transplantation within a KPD exchange, but we typically don't do that. Do not prolong the chain too much. Don't make 4 ways, 5 ways, 6 ways. Don't do that. That is not going to benefit. It doesn't help. So doing a 3-way or 4-way should be the maximum that you should try to do. Minimize age gap between the donors. So it should not be more than 10 years. Suppose I am giving, my donor has an age of 30. So I should not be getting a donor who is more than 40. So we have to take care of the sensitized and difficult to match pairs. Like suppose AB donor, O patient. These are the most difficult to match pairs. So we have to take care of them. O recipients. These are the patients we have to take care. So we always try to accommodate them before everybody else, because others will get a kidney. These patients will not. And use of compatible pairs to bridge gaps. So once you have a compatible pairs, you try to increase the number of compatible pairs in your system. Try to explain to them why it is better to wait for say 2 months, 3 months, 5 months before you go for a transplantation. I've shown you how compatible pairs will benefit. So you can explain to them, counsel them to wait. Then you can use those pairs in your swap series, and you can go ahead with the swap. So chain length, you see, this is our own experience. We have done around most of our transplantations are 2 ways and 3 ways, and very few 3 ways, 4 ways, 5 ways we have done. So most of our transplantations are around 2 ways and 3 ways. Now, how do we create multi-way chains? What is the benefit? Just to repeat this again. Now, look at this. O. This is a real world O. This was done in May 23. This is a wife who is O. Husband is B. But there was no haplo match, and we have given them 12 by 12 match. I've shown you how next week we are going to do a 9 by 12 match. Here it was a 12 by 12 match. Similarly, this patient, you see, this wife is giving to a husband. This is O. This patient is AB. So this is a compatible transplantation, but we were able to counsel them to come for a swab so that we can give them we were able to give them a class 2 full match. So which is good for the patient. This was a HLA incompatible patient. This is the donor is B, recipient is also B, but they were HLA. This patient was having some antibodies, and the others are ABO incompatible. So compatible pairs for O patients who are difficult to match. So these compatible pairs are very important because they can receive kidneys only from O. O can donate to everybody. So we need to counsel these these patients like O donors to come into the cross. Only then we can give some benefit to the O patients who are waiting with non-O donors. So longer chains can help difficult to match. Suppose there are some patients where it is suppose this patient, we were unable to find a donor for this patient. So we had to go for this kind of a transplant, because if we did this transplantation, we cannot donate to O. It was not possible to do a 2-way transplant. Suppose you have only this pair, this pair and this pair. So he can, this brother would have received a kidney from this husband, but this B cannot donate to O. So we have to exchange longer chains. We have to run longer chains so that we can give benefit to the difficult to match patients. And compatible donors, they can get better HLA matches, younger donors, example like that. Now, this is in October 23, we did this 5-way transplantation. So again, we used one ABO compatible pair, and we have, see, these are all ABO, B, A to B, B to A to B, B to O. So all of these patients have got a transplant only because of this ABO compatible pair. So we have to explain to all of these patients that try for swap. So once your swap is starting, so you need to do that. So you can use software-based allocation. This is not available. This is available with our center, but you can use, currently we're using manual and software, but software makes it easy to find out larger chains. We are also doing non-simultaneous, I've just shown you, but it is risky for initial centers who are just starting on swap. So it is better to avoid non-simultaneous surgeries. Non-anonymous allocation is probably the best way to go ahead in India, because there is, zero suspicion in the mind of the patient and the donor. So everybody has met, they know who their donor is, they know what the risk is. So that bonding is there. So it is always better to have a non-anonymous allocation policy. And what we have seen is, the moment you go for non-anonymity, the number of patients, this is our own experience, where initially we were following anonymous allocation, but once we shifted to non-anonymous and we allowed the patient and donors to meet, so our numbers have increased drastically. So just to show you our own experience, this is the overall transplantation numbers. So we have just crossed around 500 transplants, and we're still going. So around 10 to 12% of all our transplantations are done from KPD exchanges. And why do our patients come in? Mostly it is because of ABO incompatibility or sensitization. But recently we are increasing the number of compatible transplantations. So this is possible only by counseling. So we have almost 50% of the patients who are coming to us are from other states. So chain length, with time you can increase chain length. So that is very easy. And then you have the ISOT guidelines. So these are very detailed guidelines written by experts. as to how you should go for transplantation. And any doubt you have, you can always go for this guideline and look it up.
Dr. Subho, should we take a small break for discussion before Hardik
Yes,
comes
yes,
in?
yes. Should be fine. Should be fine.
So, Ganesh, if you could just remove the spotlight, or Srividya, and I'd request the participants to just raise their hands on the reaction thing and not just ask questions directly. And if Dr. Subho, if you want to remove your presentation, or what?
How do I do that?
Stop screen share. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the liberty of asking the first question. You
Yeah,
talked
yeah,
of
please do.
donor renage. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how
yeah.
often has that happened, and how really do you handle that, and what does it do to the?
No, I mean we have zero donor renage. So we have never faced this issue of so I think see, India as a, like, what we have heard from foreign speakers is they actually time the steps of the process, surgery together. What they are doing is, suppose donor surgery is happening, so once they will confirm with different centers that okay, we are here and now we have got to the donor dissection has happened. Before clamping, they will confirm, is your donor going fine, because suppose there is some complication in the donor, so they will not clamp. There are two OTs, they will talk to each other. Suppose there are these are happening in two different OTs, two different centers, so they will actually give each other a call, confirm that your donor is stable, my donor is stable, only then they will go for a clamp. Similarly, again, if the recipients they are doing, so they will coordinate step by step, because of the risk that there have been instances outside of India where there are OT staff or some other people who are in the OT, or some persons who will actually inform the other patient. If there is a lag, they will inform. And it is possible. See, for India, it is very difficult for patients once they go into the surgery. It is very difficult for them to withdraw the consent. But outside of India, this is quite possible. They can actually call in and say, okay, my consent is not there. I don't want to proceed for the surgery. Once they know that their patient has received so that is a practical thing that can happen. But right now we are safe that we don't get all of these things, and partly it is also because of the non-anonymous policy, because I think it is very easy. So we have seen patients who are doing absolutely fine after a transplant getting worried, oh, that other patient, that person's kidney is not working, creatinine is not coming down, what are you going to do? Are you going to do a biopsy? What is the biopsy? So they are as if they are going to get a biopsy on their own. So somewhere that feeling that okay, my wife's kidney or my mother's kidney is in that patient, so that comes in, there comes in bond. Yes. And typically some especially these long chains, they will go to the committees, they will go to the fitness, they'll go to anesthesia team, urology team together, they'll sit together, maybe even have tea and something. So we have had examples where they keep sending each other some good morning messages on WhatsApp, and so they actually bond together. So we luckily don't have a donor renege issue till now. We would not face. The backup we have in our mind is sometimes if this happens, what we can do is we can actually think of enlisting them for a deceased donor. But deceased donor system does not give them any points, so they have to wait through their turn, and when they get a kidney, that can happen. So there is a risk. But see, if there is a incompatible pair, what other option do they have?
True.
Yeah.
Jaya, over.
Hi, Dr. Banerjee. My question is, do you have when will there be a national such a network for swaps? And second question is whether do you have an in-house software kind of a thing, and is it internationally accepted? How does it work?
Okay, so so you have two questions. I'll answer them one by one. So national swap, our team, especially Dr. Vivek with ISO team, we are working very hard to get in a national program. See, I have shown you how, if you remember that four-way swap we did, it was not possible that B to B pair, sister and brother, they were hanging in the system for more than 6 months. We were unable to. Our center is having so many donors, so many recipients, but still because that patient was highly sensitized. That patient had received 17 blood transfusions. So it was like full of antibodies, and we were unable to find a good donor for him. So the moment you have more, it is like, see, this is more or less like a marriage bureau. The more people you have in your system, you can give them a very good match. Similarly, for the moment you have if the center goes from a single center to say a city, state, even if this, I mean, I can see 61 participants here. If we can all collaborate in a single WhatsApp group, okay, I have a B donor, A recipient, B donor, whatever. So even this is good. So the moment you increase, it is better. So we are very sure about that. We have taken this thing up with the DJHS and every other important member of the system. We are trying to do that. So that is on the cards. National program is there. Even the government is interested. So things are happening, but as usual, it's very slow. Second thing is, actually there is a NIC program that is being done. So they are actually in the process of developing a software. Currently, there are some paid softwares. We have a free version of that. So the Alliance for Kidney Donation, the image, if you remember, one person was Alvin Roth. The other person was Michael Rees. So Michael Rees is the nephrologist, actually surgeon. And Dr. Alvin Roth is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, who has come up with the game theory or the market theory that, like, everybody is in a market for getting something. So the kidney exchange is like a market. They've come to the market to buy something they want. So in exchange, what they're going to give is something that you want. So it is like an exchange. So this is actually economics theory which has been used in the kidney transplantation world. So all these algorithms, what exactly can go wrong? So they have all given this. So Alliance for Kidney Donation, they have come up with a software. It is paid and it's pricey. So NIC is in the NIC, that is the National Informatics Center in Hyderabad. They are in the process of developing a software. And once the national program is up, so I think the software will be available to all. See, but manual 2-way, 3-way, it is very easy. It is very easy. You can rope in one of your nephrologists. Sir, you just check. So it is possible. We have done 10 ways without a software.
Right.
So it is possible.
Thank you.
Thiagu wants to, Shanmugam, you wanted to ask a question. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's very nice. How do you pool the patient's data? How do you pool it? Say I'm working for a hospital A. I don't have much of patients for transplant. So how can I pool the patients in Chennai? Like Apollo Hospital, the ABC Hospital, you have a Vijay
I think one of the best mechanisms is for the transplant coordinators to have a small group, because you are in charge, you have the numbers. So I think somebody has to take charge, or what you can do is you can have the local, say, nephrology groups. Suppose in Chennai, there must be a Chennai nephrology group or something like that. So they can do that, but I think in their busy schedules, it's very difficult for the nephrologist or the surgeons to coordinate. But I think see, I'm forgetting sir's name. They have just done a 2-way swap between 2 centers, a liver swap actually, in Hyderabad. So it is possible. So it is quite possible to do swaps. So what you need to do is you need to maintain a list, and you need to just concentrate on 2-way swaps. That A, B, B, A. Just do that to start once, because that is the most easy part. You have to do nothing. So you just have to maintain those lists. Okay, I have a donor, B recipient. Give them a very good medical care so that they don't die on dialysis. I'm talking of kidney transplants here. So they don't die on dialysis. Just keep them waiting. Keep them informed that I'll get you a good pair. And in the meantime, you need to ask all of your colleagues, do you have a reverse pair? Suppose I have a A and B. Do you have a B and A? I think that can help. You must be in touch with so many of your coordinators.
Yeah, I understand, doctor. Fine.
Yeah.
I understood that. Now, in my hospital, I have, say, A negative. Okay, I have a AB donor from the other hospital. But where does the transplant happen? It will happen in my hospital or other hospital?
Okay, so the typical concept in multi-centered swaps is recipients don't travel. So every recipient will suppose you are in Chennai. So it is just fine. You can do the donors, nephrectomy in your own hospital and transfer that kidney. So that is one option. Safer option is to, suppose the problem arises when one is a government center, one is a private center. The costs are different. So that might be difficult. So, but if they're all government centers, the 2 centers can come in. They can have an average price. Suppose one is charging 5, one is charging 7 lakhs. Both can charge 6 lakhs. So that price will be shared. It's fine. So you exchange the donor. Suppose my donor is there, your donor is there. So your donor comes to me, I do the surgery. My donor goes to you, you do the surgery. Always remember that the fitness has to be given by the operating team. Suppose my recipient, that recipient will stay with me. Your donor will come to me, my donor will go to you. So this is the standard that is being done. Or you can transport the
Guidelines
kidney.
definitely need to be drawn up, Dr. Subho. Some guidelines need to be drawn up, more generic guidelines, at least.
Yes, yes. But I think like waiting for these guidelines to happen and these
It will
things.
never get done.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we are all intelligent enough not to be like dictated by guidelines and should be able to do these things by our own. I mean this is very, very simple to understand that. Okay, why don't you transfer? I think problem becomes the multi-way exchanges. Now, suppose my donor has to go to your center. So that familiarity will not be there. Suppose my patient is there, the donor is
It's
there.
easier in that one center.
Yes, yes, yes. But I don't think it is feasible to have both of the transplants in one center, because ultimately at the end of the day, collaboration will not work unless one hospital is missing revenue.
It won't. It won't grow. The program won't.
Yeah. So one transplant might happen, two may happen, but it will not be 10. It will never be 100. So it has to be donor moving to to the other hospital.
I'll take Sridhar's question before we go to Hardik. Sridhar, over to you.
Yeah, Dr. Banerjee, it was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm happy you covered practically everything, all challenges and the benefits in paired kidney donation. Now, as far as the awareness is concerned, as you know, very recently in the ISOT, the two major presentations were there by Dr. Michael Reeves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that has brought a lot of awareness about the paired kidney donation. Also about the APKD software. Now, I am heading the India operations for APKD.
Okay, very good. Huh?
Yeah,
I know.
They have taken over, and I have connected with many of the important centers across India now, and including the government hospitals, including the corporates, and the enthusiasm is so much that everybody wants to do it. They are looking at IKDRC as a role model, and rightly MOHAN Foundation brought you on the platform to share the important information and messages about your success stories in the for the pair donation. Thank you so much.
It was done my pleasure actually.
So should we ask Hardik to present? There are some questions in the chat, but probably we should get Hardik on. Yeah. आप बोलेंगे प्रेजेंटेशन भी है नहीं
Actually have a presentation. I've seen that.
He's trying to put it.
In the meantime, I am also happy to share that Mr. Atul Agnihotri also has joined.
Yeah.
He is the global head for the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation.
Welcome. Hey, Atul. How are you? Okay, someone wants to ask here, doctor, in a hospital where my husband was undergoing HT, I have seen KPD between two patients. In such cases, I always felt paperwork is much easier as the same transplant coordinator mediates between them and both under the same treating nephrologist. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is always easy. It is always easy. But the problem is the moment you are able to expand it into multiple centers, so see, it's very easy for very simple to match AB, BA kind of pairs. So that is very easy. But the moment you want actual benefit to come in, so you have to go to it is again a marketplace. So you want to go to your own nearby shop, you get three options. Okay, this biscuit, and this biscuit. You go to a big multi-brand store. So you get 200 brands of biscuits. So all these foreign biscuits and everything. So anything you want, you can get there. Similarly, the moment you can expand it into a larger center, so these logistics are there. no doubt, but we have to just follow a simple say that is where guidelines actually come in. What documents do we need? So the law is there, but still there is, since health is a state matter, so there is a differential way in which different states are working. So it takes a little bit of convincing from every end to minimize the problems that we are facing, and then maybe we can actually go in and reap the actual benefits of doing a KPD.
Yeah, that was Usha's question.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor.
And Bhanu wants to ask, do we have a GO on swab transplantation? I don't think so. It's a government order.
I mean, see, at the end of the day, a swab transplant is a living donor transplant. A swab transplant is a unrelated living donor transplant. That's it. So the Act as a whole, there is no government order required. Act as a whole, it has covered all the aspects of the swab. It has mentioned what is required in a swab. If you see Form 2, 1, 11, so all of these, they have the details. What is required? What is the list of documents that is required? So it's very clearly given in the Act.
Yeah.
It's all covered.
Hardik, I'm just waiting for you to put your, that's why I'm taking questions. If you can go on with your presentation, I will not ask more questions.
Hardik? Maybe if they can mail it to me, I can open it here.
Yeah.
Hardik? Are you muted also?
Poonam wants to ask, if one of the patient is going for a second transplant and the other one for the first, would you
Yes.
still suggest a swap if there's no match in the near relative?
Yeah, absolutely. That is not a problem. See, first transplant, second transplant, everything is at the end of the day, what we're wanting to do is give a better
Life.
transplant to all of these. So there is no issue. If we want to go in for a second transplant, we have done a lot of these things where second transplant patients have come in and participated in a swab. So that is not an issue. Again, what you have to do is look at the immunology. What is the surgery? The left. See, again, now the risk of surgery goes up because it's a left-sided transplant. If there is a active, the patient is already on immunosuppressive drugs, so risk of infection. These things you have to balance, and the counseling should be in that way. So in this case, you have to counsel that you are going in for a second transplant. Your kidney may not last as good as the other patient's kidney. So these counseling parts you have to take care. I think Hardik is on.
I think it's ready. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hardik, आवाज नहीं आ रहा है. Unmute, I think. नहीं.
है शायद. Yeah. Meanwhile, are there any other questions from the audience while Hardik is getting his sound in place? So, Dr. Subho, which other centers have begun to look at swab transplant other than IKDRC?
There are some centers in the north, like Medanta, they have done a few swabs, and Telangana, they are doing a few swabs, and liver swab, as I told you, that is happening. So by and large, then single centers, like I was working in Raipur one time, so this is around 5-6 years back. That hospital, Ramakrishna Care, they have done a swab. So there are only limited patients who are actually going in for a swab. So that's more or less more anecdotal rather than a standard thing that is happening.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hardik Jethva. I am a transplant coordinator at IKDRC. तो आज हम जो बात करने वाले हैं स्वैब ट्रांसप्लांट के लिए, तो उसके रिगार्डिंग, तो स्वैब ट्रांसप्लांट में सबसे पहले जो होता है, तो सबसे पहले पेशेंट्स हमारे काउंसलर के पास जाता है, हमारे ट्रांसप्लांट कोऑर्डिनेटर के पास बाद में आता है. सबसे पहले पेशेंट जाता है, और हमारे काउंसलर है तो उसके पास जाता है. वहाँ पेशेंट्स बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन लेता है, मतलब कि कैसे कैसे होगा, क्या क्या प्रोसेस है, हमको क्या क्या करना पड़ेगा, क्या क्या डॉक्यूमेंट. आफ्टर दैट हमारा रोल चालू होता है. तो सबसे पहले काउंसलर के पास जाता है, और काउंसलर जो भी रिक्वायर्ड डॉक्यूमेंट्स है और फॉर्मेलिटी है, तो वो उसकी जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग लैंग्वेज है उसमें उनको समझाते हैं पेशेंट्स को, क्योंकि हमारे पास नहीं गुजरात के नहीं पर अदर स्टेट के भी पूरे इंडिया में से पेशेंट्स आते हैं. तो हमारे पास सबसे पहले नेफ्रोलॉजिस्ट को दिखाने के बाद नेफ्रोलॉजिस्ट बोलते हैं कि भाई ऑथो मतलब कि काउंसलर के पास जाके अभी आप डॉक्यूमेंट समझ लो और सारे डॉक्यूमेंट जमा करवा दो। तो उसके पास एक ऑथोराइज लेटर देते हैं हमको, मैं आपको पीपीटी में शो करता हूँ। दिस टाइप ऑफ फर्स्ट वन, दिस टाइप ऑफ लेटर्स देते हैं ऑथोराइज कमिटी में कि भाई पेशेंट्स क्यों जाना चाहता है क्रॉस में। तो उसके क्या है कि भाई घर में से तो उनकी पेशेंट की पूरी फैमिली डिटेल हिस्ट्री लेते हैं वो लोग कि जैसे फादर है तो उनका क्या रीजन है कि भाई फादर डायबिटिक है, कि भाई ओवर एज है, ऐसा जो भी है तो वो हम लिखते हैं। आप देख सकते हो पीपीटी में कि फादर है, मदर है, वाइफ, सिस्टर, चाइल्ड, वो क्यों नहीं दे पाते। तो उसमें ये लेटर लेके हमारे पास आता है और सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स लेके आता है। तो क्या क्या डॉक्यूमेंट्स लगते हैं वो मैं आपको समझाता हूँ। तो ये एक ऑथोराइज लेटर है। जब पेशेंट्स पहली बार हमारे पास आता है, जब पेशेंट्स पहली बार हमारे पास आता है ना, तो इसके रिगार्डिंग जो हम ये वाला लेटर लेते हैं, ये फर्स्ट वन वाला, और उसकी पैर मिल जाने के बाद ये वाला लेटर हमारे पास होता है। तो उसके पैर में कौन है, तो जो भी हमारे यहाँ 3 कमेटी होती है स्वैप ट्रांसप्लांट की। फर्स्ट कमेटी होती है पेशेंट्स की अकेले की, कि मतलब फॉर एग्जांपल कि हस्बैंड वाइफ डोनर है, तो वाइफ डोनर है और हस्बैंड पेशेंट्स है, तो उसमें फर्स्ट कमेटी उन दोनों की होती है। और उसके बाद जो सेकंड कमेटी होती है वो पैर मिलने के बाद पैर की कमेटी होती है, दोनों की साथ में होती है। और आईकेडीआरसी ऑथोराइज कमिटी जो ट्रांसप्लांट की परमिशन देती है वो, और डीएमईआर, वो दोनों ने मिलकर जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स बनाए हैं वो अकॉर्डिंग हम डॉक्यूमेंट कलेक्ट करते हैं। तो उसमें सबसे पहला डॉक्यूमेंट है रेशन कार्ड। तो रेशन कार्ड, तो ये डॉक्यूमेंट्स हम लेते हैं। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल जो डॉक्यूमेंट है रेशन कार्ड, वो एसओएस होता है, मतलब पेशेंट्स के पास हो तो भी वो दे सकता है, अगर नहीं है तो भी वो चल सकता है। एक रेशन कार्ड से हम ऐसा प्रूव करते हैं कि पेशेंट्स है तो उनके फैमिली मेंबर में से कोई देने वाला है। अगर उसकी माता पिता देने वाले, भाई बहन देने वाले, तो उसका नाम उसमें होगा ही। फिर अनदर डॉक्यूमेंट हम लेते हैं आधार कार्ड, पान कार्ड, पासपोर्ट साइज फोटो और वोटर आईडी। इन दोनों में से कोई भी 4 प्रूफ लेते, 4 में से कोई भी 2 प्रूफ लेते हैं, एनी हाउ 2। उसके बाद हम पेशेंट्स का बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट लेते हैं। बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट वो सब में कंपलसरी है, और वो भी हमारे जो ऑथोराइजेशन से होता है, डिपार्टमेंट से होता है, वहीं से लेते हैं। अगर पेशेंट्स और मतलब जो पेशेंट है वो हस्बैंड है या वाइफ हो, वाइफ डोनर हो या हस्बैंड डोनर हो, तो उसमें मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट हम कंपलसरी लेते हैं कि उससे प्रूव हो सकता है कि भाई ये उनकी वाइफ है या इनके हस्बैंड है। बाकी मदर फादर हो तो उसमें डीएनए रिपोर्ट से भी हम पता लगा सकते हैं, और सिस्टर ब्रदर में भी हम डीएनए रिपोर्ट से पता लगा सकते हैं, और वाइफ डोनर में से हम नहीं लगा सकते। तो इसमें मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट भी हम लेते हैं, और जो उनके बच्चों का जन्म का प्रमाण पत्र जो होता है, बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ द चाइल्ड, पेशेंट्स को 1 चाइल्ड है, 2 चाइल्ड है, तो उनके भी जन्म के प्रमाण पत्र मतलब बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट उनका भी लगता है। उनके बाद हम पेशेंट्स का इनकम सर्टिफिकेट लेते हैं। अगर पेशेंट के पास इनकम सर्टिफिकेट नहीं होता है तो पेशेंट्स को मतलब जो कोई ऐसा होता है कि भाई मैं सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में जॉब करता हूँ, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट में जॉब करता हूँ, तो मेरे पास नहीं है, तो उनकी हम सैलरी स्लिप लेते हैं, और उनके पास वो फॉर्म 16 से भी लेते हैं और आईटी रिटर्न भी से चला लेते हैं। पुलिस वेरिफिकेशन से हम ये पता लगा सकते हैं कि वो पेशेंट्स कहाँ का है, लोकल का, और उसके ऊपर कोई केस है या नहीं। ये सपोर्टिव डॉक्यूमेंट्स के लिए हम लेते हैं। उसके बाद है डोमिसाइल सर्टिफिकेट। तो मतलब पेशेंट्स कहाँ का लोकल है वो हम जानने के लिए डोमिसाइल मतलब जो मूल निवास बोल सकते हो आप, तो वो पुलिस कमिश्नर या फिर तहसीलदार, जो मामलतदार बोल सकते हैं हमारे गुजरात में, तो उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम उसका आइडेंटिटी प्रूफ लेते हैं। फिर उसके बाद हम लेते हैं वंशावली, जो फैमिली ट्री बोल सकते हो। तो इससे पता चलता है कि पेशेंट्स जो है वो किस पेशेंट का क्या रिलेशन है, और हाँ वो पता चलता है। और उसके बाद पेशेंट डोनर का जो होता है वो साइकेट्रिक फिटनेस मस्ट भी कंपलसरी होना ही चाहिए, क्योंकि पेशेंट्स डोनर है जो वो अवेयर है कि नहीं है मेंटली, हाँ मेंटली इनसेट है कि नहीं है, वो पता चल सकता है इससे। फिर हम लेते हैं अनदर डॉक्यूमेंट नेक स्किन, मतलब नेक स्किन में हम ऐसा लेते हैं कि जो पेशेंट्स जो डोनर्स होता है उसके रिलेटिव, मतलब कि अगर वाइफ डोनर है तो उनके घर में से उनके माता पिता या उनके भाई बहन, अगर हस्बैंड डोनर है तो उनके साइड से उनके माता पिता या उनके भाई बहन, अगर सिस्टर डोनर है तो माता पिता या भाई बहन कोई भी चल सकता है। तो नेक स्किन जो डोनर है ना उनका हम मतलब 50 रुपीज स्टैम्प पे जो एफिडेविट लेते हैं, और कि भाई ये सो एंड सो सहमति देते हैं और ये क्रॉस में जाने की हम परमिशन देते हैं, और हमारे परिवार को कोई आपत्ति नहीं है और ना ही इन फ्यूचर कोई आपत्ति होगी। हाँ, अगर डोनर वाइफ हो और उसकी उम्र 35 साल से कम हो तो उसका हम वीडियो रिकॉर्ड भी करते हैं, और हमारी 2 बार कमेटी होती है, एक बार सिंगल पैर में कमेटी होती है और एक बार सेकंड पैर में कमेटी होती है। तो सिंगल पैर में जो कमेटी होती है उसमें जो फर्स्ट टाइम कमेटी होती है ना, उसमें से खाली पेशेंट और डोनर की होगी, भले वो क्रॉस में जा रहे हैं पर अभी उनकी पैर नहीं मिली है, तो सिंगल टाइम कमेटी हो जानी चाहिए। तो उनमें जो नेक्स्ट स्किन होता है जिसने कंसर्न दिए कि भाई ये दोनों का ट्रांसप्लांट हो रहा है, तो उसमें हमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, तो उनका भी उनको भी हाजिर रखते हैं और कमेटी के सामने, और उनका भी वो लाइव टेली मतलब रिकॉर्डिंग करते हैं। और हम जो फर्स्ट टाइम पेशेंट्स आता है क्रॉस में फर्स्ट कमेटी करने के लिए, तो उसमें हम जो ये फॉर्म है रजिस्ट्रेशन फॉर्म फॉर डिक्रीज डोनर एंड क्रॉस डोनर के लिए, तो उसमें हम बेसिक माहिती लेते हैं, जैसे कि पेशेंट का ब्लड ग्रुप क्या है, उसका पूरा नाम, जेंडर, कॉज ऑफ पीएसआरडी मतलब एंड स्टेज ऑफ रीनल डिजीज क्या है पेशेंट का, उसका सीआर नंबर, मराठा स्टेटस, और जो आप नीचे देख पा रहे हो कि पेशेंट्स डिटेल है, तो उसमें जो एक्चुअल उसके साथ है ना जो क्रॉस में जा रहा है, ठीक है, वो उसके मतलब जो पेशेंट्स है और उनका जो डोनर है उनका एक्चुअल में जो होता है ना उनके साथ घर में से जो कोई होता है ना उसका हिस्ट्री कलेक्शन लेते हैं, और उनका इधर उसका पूरा फैमिली हिस्ट्री लेते हैं कि भाई रेसिपिएंट फुल फॉर्म नेम, जैसे फादर घर में से नहीं दे रहे, जैसे फादर घर में से नहीं दे रहे तो उनका रीजन ले रहे, कोई रीजन नॉट डोनेटिंग किडनी, तो उनका सपोर्टिव ग्रुप भी लेते हैं, ब्लड ग्रुप लेते हैं हम, और सपोर्टिव ग्रुप जैसे फादर डायबिटिक है तो डायबिटिक का रिपोर्ट लेते हैं, फिर मदर हाइपरटेंसिव है, ब्रदर को कोई कुछ नहीं है, अगर कोई घर में से मतलब ब्रदर का ब्लड ग्रुप फॉर एग्जांपल मैच हो रहा है या सिस्टर का मैच हो रहा है या किसी का भी हो रहा है, तो उनको जैसे पेशेंट का ब्लड ग्रुप ओ है और जो घर में से किसी का मैच हो रहा है उसके साथ, अगर वो किडनी देना नहीं चाहता तो उसका 50 रुपीज स्टैम्प के ऊपर हम असहमति पत्र लेते हैं कि मैं मेरा ब्लड ग्रुप मैच हो रहा है पर मैं देने के लिए तैयार नहीं हूँ, मैं मेरे पारिवारिक कारण सो एंड सो रीजन हो सकता है उसके लिए, पर मैं देने के लिए तैयार नहीं हूँ। क्रॉस ट्रांसप्लांट में हम जो फॉर्म भरते हैं, तो अगर हस्बैंड वाइफ हो, फॉर्म नंबर 3, फॉर्म नंबर 4 और फॉर्म नंबर 11 वो सब में कॉमन रहता है, पर हस्बैंड वाइफ डोनर हो, हस्बैंड डोनर हो या वाइफ डोनर हो, तो उसमें फॉर्म 6 हम एक्स्ट्रा मतलब एडवांस गवर्नमेंट की गाइडलाइन के अकॉर्डिंग आता है, और मदर फादर डोनर हो और ब्रदर सिस्टर डोनर हो तो फॉर्म 5 आता है, फॉर्म 5 मतलब डीएनए रिपोर्ट जो होती है वो होता है। थैंक यू, अगर आपको कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो आप पूछ सकते हो।
That was very good, Hardik. That was very, very comprehensive. Thank you so much. If you just take your presentation down, I have some questions depending upon who can, but between Dr. Subho and you can answer. The Hemal wants to know how much more time is involved by a TC and a nephrologist for a swap, and does having a KPD software help? Hardik, if you could just remove the presentation so we can have the audience visible. Yeah, so how much more time is involved by a TC and a nephrologist for a swap, and does having a KPD software help is something?
So I'll take that question. I think from a TC point of view, the paperwork is a little more extensive. So it is just like having an unrelated transplant. You have to go our step is like we do a committee for at the time of registration. Suppose it is a husband and wife who are incompatible, ABO-wise, HLA-wise. So we'll just take the two of them to the committee and say, okay, these patients want to go in for cross. Does the committee have an issue? Wherein what happens is at least their initial, the identity, the details, they have been checked so that on a later date. So what happens is our problem is, suppose you make a pair. Suppose there is a two-way exchange. After that, if you go to the committee directly, so then there might be an issue. Okay, the PAN card doesn't look original. The Aadhaar card is problematic. So and so document we want. So all these issues. So once the pair is found, after that, it hardly takes a time. So like we are able to do, suppose we are able to find a pair. After that, within 7 days, I think we are able to put them on the list. And in the coming week, we are able to do the transplant. So between 7 to 14 days, we are able to get through with the transplant. The problem is finding the pair. So that is the biggest loophole and the biggest bottleneck. So if you say like for a A to B, B to A transplant, the waiting time would be somewhere around, say, 2 months. 2 months, because the system is like that. So otherwise it should be better. But for difficult to match pairs like sensitized patients or AB donors or O recipients, so that will take sometimes, it will take longer.
Okay.
So it can take somewhere around, say, 4 to 5 to sometimes even 6 months. So that happens.
I have a
unfortunately, we have seen cases where we have called pairs and found out that the recipient has died. So that does happen. Yeah, even young patients, they'll suddenly have a cardiac arrest or something during dialysis or something like that. So medical care in that waiting time is very important.
Yeah. Nidhi wants to know, is there any platform it can share that ABO incompatible donor is with the recipient? Generally not shared in between the hospitals. Government hospital has huge data. If can be shared, any legal complications? I am not very clear about that question.
I have a question for doctor.
Can you ask?
Nidhi, if you're there, you want to ask this question directly, because are you there, Nidhi?
Apart from that license, every single living.
Ma'am, your voice is not clear.
So,
Okay, Thiagu, you could ask your question.
Yeah, I have a question for the doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor, suppose if it is ABO incompatibility, the doctor says I will do a plasmapheresis and remove the antibody.
Yes.
So how do you substantiate, or what is the better answer for this? Suppose I approach a different hospital and they don't want to share, they don't want to do swab transplant, and he says that I do a plasmapheresis.
See that. So one thing is, what we have to do is we have to think of two options. Like suppose there is a patient who has an ABO incompatible donor. So now there are two options. So you can go in for an ABO incompatible transplantation. So in Japan, if you see, almost 30 to 40% of all transplants are ABO incompatible. So that is a standard proven thing. But the issue is cost, and the issue is bleeding and infection. So bleeding can be controlled. That is not much of an issue, but infection is definitely high. So I have shown you examples of national database, evaluation, which have shown that ABO incompatible transplant is at least twice as expensive and only half as good. So the risk of bleeding, infection. So if you add all of them together, so even short-term outcomes are good, but long-term outcomes are not that good. So risk of infection does go up. So it is always what you are more comfortable with. If you are comfortable, see, in our center, we have a very small ABO transplant, ABO incompatible transplant activity, because most of these patients, it is very easy to get them. Why would somebody want to go in for a more complicated, more costly method of treatment if there is an alternate available? It is only because alternate is not available. So I tell you what the US experience right now is. They don't go for ABO incompatible transplant for A patient, B donors, because they are very sure that they'll be able to get a transplant in 2 to 3 weeks. If I'm able to get a transplant in 2 to 3 weeks, why should I go for a extra costly and risky procedure? So it is only because we as a nation, we are unable to get a ABO swap program up. That is why we have to still go back to that.
Okay, I have one more question, sir.
Tiago, there are other people who have questions. I'll give them an option round. Too many
No,
questions
that's-
from you is unfair. So Nandi wants to say, if a patient is doing well and another patient rejection happens during swap, what are the legal problems we face?
So legal problem is not there, because this is just a medical issue. And what you have to do is, see, this is where, so you have to have a very good lab which you can definitely have faith on. So these patients, you need to do a detailed workup. So these are the things where it goes wrong. If you do just a CDC or maybe a DNA lysate test, which is not very practical, which most of the centers are doing, so you should do a very detailed evaluation, get a transplant immunologist of good experience into the system, so that these things don't happen. So see, rejection is not an issue. See, suppose what happens is you go in for a transplant, and on the table there is a hyperacute rejection. So one patient is coming out urine pouring, other patient is coming out without the kidney. You have had to remove the kidney just after transplantation. How do you explain that to the patient? So there should be no shortcomings from your end. Whatever you do, see, our lab, what we are doing is we are doing a CTC cross match, we're doing a flow cross match, and we are doing a single antigen. That is the standard of evaluation almost worldwide. So that you have to do. It is going to be a little costly to the patient. So there are some centers who are just doing a CDC and doing a transplant. That is easy. That you can do for one single patient. But when you're going in for a swap, you have to be extra cautious, because this means, you see, it is affecting the lives and the the survival, everything of two different pairs of patients. If I donate a kidney and nothing happens to that kidney, I'll not be very happy.
So many more dynamics are involved in when there are multiple people involved.
Yes.
Families involved.
So detailed and extensive immunological evaluation is very important. Yeah. So there is a important tests are. So one is a CDC cross match. So it is just a lymphocyte cross match wherein you put the donor's lymphocyte. You take blood from the donor. You take that lymphocyte. You put it in the patient's serum, mix with complement. So these are technical issues. So you can see. So it is basically a lab transplant in a test tube. So that you can do. So this will tell you very important antibodies, absolutely crashing antibodies. You do a transplant, that kidney will just turn black and be dead. So those transplant that will be given by CDC test. Second is a flow cross match. Flow cross match is a little more sensitive. It will pick up all those antibodies which may cause trouble, not right now, but may say 1 year or 2 years. So this is a flow cytometry cross match. And the other is a single antigen. So you do what are the antibodies that are present in the blood of the recipient. So these are the three tests you are doing. So the single antigen, there are two variants. One is just a qualitative test. Are there any antibodies? So if the answer is no, we don't need to look further. If the answer is yes, there are some antibodies. So are these antibodies against the specific donor that we're putting? So that this is called as donor specific antibodies. So these are the tests that you need to do. So what you are essentially looking at is there a bit of sensitization? There was a question I saw, what is sensitization? So if a recipient, there is a patient who has some antibodies in his blood, which are typically against HLA antibodies of the proposed donor. So I am a patient, I have this donor, and I have some antibodies against that donor. If you put in that kidney, do a transplant, my kidney is going to last for, say, maybe a day, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, and maybe 3 years. Not beyond that. Typically, these kidneys will be lost very early, and there is hardly anything you can do. And I'll tell you what, if you happen to have a rejection, the chances of dying for that patient increases. Why? Because we will be enthusiastic, we'll treat that rejection with intense immunosuppression. So already the patient is on immunosuppression. Again, we'll bombard him with the drugs, and then the patient will die of some infection. So that is very common in India. So you need to avoid this. So rather than going in for a problematic transplant where there is a little bit of sensitization, you don't know what exactly will happen. We right now we have a very young child. He's around 10 years of age. His mother was a donor, got rejected because of proteinuria, and now the father has come in. So he has antibodies in the tune of around 2,000. So our cutoff typically for other patients would be around, say, 3,000, 3,400 or 3,500, maybe 5,000 somewhere. So even for this 2,500 antibody, we don't want to go in for a transplant. We are looking for a swap pair, because this is a young child. We want to give him a very good kidney which will last at least 10 to 12 years, because he is anyway going to need a second transplant. So we want to find him a very good match. So we have just registered him. He's a compatible pair. Both are B. So we are looking for a match where there are no antibodies. So we want a donor who will exactly fit the recipient. So this is sensitization.
All right, Harishma wants to know if both the pairs are from the same centers, is it necessary to schedule the surgery at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Suppose I am a patient and I get a kidney today and my donor is going to donate tomorrow. I am going to tell my, say, mother or wife or brother, why do you want to donate? I have got a kidney. You
Got
can
it.
say, I don't want to donate. End of
Mhm.
story. So what are you going to tell that other donor? Problem is not that that patient has not got a kidney. So that patient has been cheated. And one donor is gone from the family. Suppose husband, wife. Okay, so the other person's wife has donated to this person. So now that wife cannot go in and donate her second kidney. So they have no chance of getting into a transplant swab. Suppose it's a B and a O. So now they're absolutely finished. They don't have a kidney. They didn't get a transplant. Now they have an old mother with diabetes, a father with, say, paralysis or something. So they don't have a chance. The only option would be to wait for a deceased donor. And say there are some states like which don't have an existing deceased donor transplant. Suppose they are from my state, Jharkhand. There is no deceased donor transplant. So they have to remain on hemodialysis. So end of story.
Parul wants to know, can we expect from IKDRC to start some official 4-5 days training program for KPD program?
Yeah, I was actually talking to her and we were trying to plan that, but we got caught in something. I'll definitely make sure. I'll make sure that we can at least do something because hands-on, see, we do transplant day in and day out. We do a lot of swabs. And you can once you see this for yourself, like what is the benefit? Like it is so fulfilling for us to have that transplant in the next week where we're giving a 2x2, 5x6 and a 9x12 match.
Wow.
So I am so proud of that. So once you are into that system, you see what is happening to these patients. There are patients who are waiting. We have recently done a transplant for a O patient, AB donor. I mean, how do you do that? It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
The anti-ABO titers were also very high, so we were not happy to go in for an ABO incompatible transplantation. So it is something that you can actually enjoy. So even for you, it's I think very enjoyable that you can give a transplant to a patient who did not expect to have a transplant ever. So I think we can do something about that.
Please do that in collaboration with NATCO, sir.
Yes, and that's just fine. Yeah.
Dr. Shreyas wants to know, sir, in A and B parallel transplants, we have both candidates as donor and recipient. Then how is it decided that particular candidate is donor and so is to move to the other city or hospital? I could not.
Can you explain that, Dr. Shreyash?
Are you there, Shreyas? No. Okay. Thiagu really wants to ask his question, so we go back to him.
I want to ask one more question.
Yeah,
non-related, can they do swap with the relative? Donor is non-related. Someone is giving a donor. He's a donor. He's non-related.
Yes.
Okay, not near relative.
So not near relative. So we need to break the barrier a little by little. So first thing, I would be more than happy to have an uncle. Suppose there is an uncle or an aunt. Why not? They are as much. See, for me, my parents and my uncle, they are kind of the same, no? In our culture, it is like we call them Masi or something like that, Bade Papa. So that it's like the same. So I don't think there should be any hindrance because ours is not a very broken family. So typically what will happen is these people will be as much interested. Today I saw one of our medical colleagues. She has CKD. So 7 people came with her. 2 aunts, 1 uncle, husband, mother, father, and one of the aunts' husband. So all of these people came with that girl. So I think we can have, our culture is such that uncles, aunts, they can donate. So the Kerala High Court and the Punjab High Court, they have all shown that they have all said that there is no reason why they should not donate. So that we can take. Problem with further unrelated donors like friends, and so there are possibilities, but by and large, these will be having some sort of a hidden or overt or covert transaction, so monetary wise, or suppose some giving and taking. So I am not very interested in that. I would rather want to not have that in my center or like in our program. But uncles, aunts, I think we're fine accepting that. But still, right now there is no provision. I keep charging my patients. You go to the code, go to the code. Still not. I'm not successful with that. But I would rather want some of my patients to go to the code and get me that order because I cannot go there.
Hey Atul, thanks for joining from the US. Over to you.
Hello, sir.
Hello, namaskar, everyone. And I appreciate, first of all, Pallavi and Mohan Foundation for setting this up. I apologize, it's the middle of the night here and I'm at a hotel, so I can't put my camera on. Subho, you did an amazing job between you and Hardik. You know, you have plus 500 swap transplants already done, which is not just a remarkable thing for India, but I would say it's amongst the larger swaps done around the world. So my congratulations, and you shared such great knowledge. I hope everyone got something good out of it. And I saw the participation both on the Facebook side and here, and it's just delighted me. After the ISOT in Kolkata, where we got a great reception on the topic, I think coming here and seeing everyone so interested in it, I think what I wanted to share was that this may seem like a new practice, but it's been going on for decades.
Yeah.
So it's not something new. I know India has gone down the route of ABO incompatible. However, I think Subho has articulated very well the cases where it should not be considered, where this should be the most favorable treatment. I remember before COVID, I think Subho, your center was doing greater than 20% or 25% of your transplants were swap transplants.
Yes. So we touched somewhere around say 20-25% on several years.
Yeah. And I think, in US right now, the average, any center that's done more than 3 transplants right now in US, you'll see that more than 30% of their transplants are swap transplants. So you have the infrastructure, you have world-class physicians, and all you need is a little bit of courage to start this practice. And as far as Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation is concerned, we are happy to support it in any different manner. So again, my appreciation.
Vrinda?
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Vrinda, you'll need to unmute yourself, Vrinda. Vrinda, are you asking your question? Then you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Yes, I would like to just add to Hardik. In our center, what we do is we take additional affidavits by all the donors and all the recipients together. This is the requirement. Initially, when we used to send it to government for approval for swap transplant, they had suggested us to do such kind of affidavits. So in addition to routine things, we ask combined affidavit by both the donors as well as both the recipients.
That's a good idea, I think. That's a good idea. I mean, there is no harm in doing that. And it is just another little bit of paperwork with the same advocate, I guess. So that doesn't should be done.
Yeah.
Should be done. Because ultimately there has to be a piece of paper which says that, okay, we are going in for this transplant. We have been explained all the details and we are doing this as a team, as a set of people, and we understand what is going to happen to us. So I am in favor of that. I'm in favor of that.
Thank you.
I think Pallavi is left, I think.
I didn't leave. I got disconnected. It would be rather rude of me to leave. Falsely accused.
Actually, I was to take over.
Oh, you
I
can
didn't
still take
see
over. So Vrinda asked a question. You're most welcome to take over. Is Vrinda asked a question and was she answered?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Banerjee, what are the key messages, 2 messages you are giving to all the entire participants?
Okay, so one is think of swap when you see a ABO incompatible pair. Think of swap when you see a compatible pair, which is going in for a transplant you would not want to go for. So if I was getting a kidney with a 0/12 match or say 1/12, say whatever you are doing, say even if we talk in terms of 6 HLA matches, if I was getting 1 or 2 matches, I am doing absolutely fine on dialysis. I have a very good fistula, doing fine. I just want to go in for a transplant. I would rather want to give them a chance that without just don't jump into transplant. Transplant is a big jump. You need to time it. It is like getting onto a train. So you jump right in between, you get crushed. You take the proper timing, you get onto the train, and you want to go wherever you want to go, you get to reach there. So you have to time that transplant in a proper way. If the patient is suppose on a dual lumen catheter, not doing well, you might want to go in for all of these transplantations. So the case is give your patient the best option, and remember to have KPD in that. Okay, one. Second thing is, I mean, the counseling is very important. Whenever you go for, see, you do a swap, there is an unequal outcome. You will never do a swap again. So you have to understand that. Suppose you do a pair and like we're talking, one kidney turns black, your center swap program is finished. Yeah. So what you need to do is you have to be very, very careful with the donor, with the recipient. Even if you have a simple doubt, go sit with the patient. You can get ask them to meet some other doctor, some other team, get a feedback. You can get an understanding. Maybe you can go with all those documents, sit with a senior person, get the feedback so that your program does not mess up. So these are the two things: the counseling, the medical workup, that has to be very, very clear, very, very, I mean, exhaustive. Second thing is your counseling has to be very so that see. I have what my understanding is: patients are not foolish, recipients are not foolish, donors are not foolish. If you explain to them that okay, this can happen. See, it's like taking a flight. Everybody wants to be there, but everybody knows that my flight might crash. Yeah. So everybody understands that. Nobody is foolish enough to think that okay, why did my thing? So it is only because we are unable to communicate to them very nicely. So that is important. So think of swap when you think of transplant, and be very, very pertinent and very, very clear with the kind of evaluation you do. I think that should be the two most important things.
So I don't think we can take, there's one more question there. Nidhi, you wanted to know an important test. Please repeat. This recording will be available on the NATCO website. So please go and look it up there. We don't have the time to repeat those tests. Poonam wants to ask, Astra Transplant Registry by Apex Hospital, specifically, how helpful is it? And I think that was my question.
I'm not aware of that.
Not aware.
Very sorry, I'm not aware of that. What is that? Can you explain, please?
No, there is a Astra organization based out of Mumbai that has been looking at connecting swap transplants across the country. It's been around for a long time, and a lot of queries that we get for swap transplants we actually forward to them. So I would have liked to know from you, but it's okay. All right, so I think we will have to probably wind up this session. What a good session, Dr. Subho, Hardik. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to.
Yeah, he did two nights consecutively. He did 2 consecutive nights, 2 cadavers. One cadaver did not do well, and in spite of that, he was able to prepare.
Wow, Hardik, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us. And continue to be.
What is the software, sir? You're talking about the software. Can you share the software? Like, should I pay for that, like something like that?
Yeah. So
yeah.
So software is from Alliance for Kidney Donation. So the national software is still not up. They're trying to work on it. The Alliance for Kidney Donation, I'm very sorry, it is still paid, and we are kind of using that. I mean, we're not using that very, very exhaustively. So still we are based on manual allocation only. So there is a risk of missing something. So it's always better to use software. It is going to suppose on a single center basis, we can do it manually. But if you get to do it on a state basis, you have 10,000 patients waiting for a swab. It is not possible to. So that will not be proper. So what you can do is you can get this software. So I think there is some movement with the APD and Alliance for Kidney Donation. So they are willing to share. I'm not sure exactly what will be the scenario and the pricing and everything, but right now it's not free.
Dr. Banerjee, I have posted my contact number.
Okay.
I am the one who is looking after that software in India.
Right.
So anybody can reach out to me. I'll be very happy to help them.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining, and we continue to have such learning opportunities in the future.
Thank you, Pallavi. It was fantastic, as usual.
Thank you so much.